You're live on the JoyNews channel, multi-TV, also live on DSTV channel 421. This is our coverage of the Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress that takes us a step closer to the end of the Normalization Committee's mandate. We'll be crossing over shortly to the Physicians and Surgeons Center. We understand that the chairman of the Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah, is addressing Congress. We'll cross over any moment from now and get his address to the meeting of the stakeholders of Ghana football as we take a step closer to the end of the NC's mandate. Of course, a lot of that depends on what happens at Congress today. And it all has to do with the statutes that have been reviewed by the NC. Of course, it has to be adopted by the FA's Congress. And then the next step will be to organize elections for the next Ghana Football Association's administration. Let's cross over now and get the address by the chairman of the Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah.
Nasambu Butler and Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. Representative of the Electoral Commission, Dr. Sribo. Friends and partners from the media, distinguished invited guests, we of the Normalization Committee of the Ghana Football Association, Ms. Na Odofoli Norte, Mr. Sami Osei-Kuffour, and myself, together with the top management and staff of the GFA Secretariat, greet you warmly. Good morning. Good morning, brothers and sisters. I stand before you today with malice towards no one, but with a heart full of hope and promise for the revival, the restructuring, and the positive development of a Ghana football enterprise. And I'm confident and aware that we all share these sentiments together. And therefore, we are hopeful that this Congress today will be a watershed in the history of Ghana football, a turning point for the development of a modern football enterprise, not only for the exhibition of the beauty and wizardry of our game, but for the significant improvement in infrastructure, operations, administration, and financial strength of a Ghana football enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, for this Congress to discuss and adopt new statutes for the GFA, we believe it to be prudent to briefly catalog the series of activities and events that have culminated in the draft GFA statutes and elections regulations tabled here today. The GFA Normalization Committee, as you all know, is an offspring of discussions and negotiations between the government of Ghana and FIFA CAF that ensued after the airing of a video in Ghana and on the BBC. Brothers and sisters, it is important to state clearly that the NC's specific, it is important to state clearly what the NC's specific mandate is, as opposed to the broader and all-encompassing mandate ascribed by some pundits and upon which all sorts of judgments have been assigned to the NC's capabilities or lack thereof. This is not a defensive posture by any means, but it is an essential and critical clarification that must be made to underpin a rather longer process of actions and steps that the next GFA administration must undertake to truly reform Ghana football wholesomely. Firstly, sanitizing Ghana football laws and regulations is a prerequisite that must happen before we can build a modern, profitable Ghana football enterprise. And hence, the mandate of the NC was designed to accomplish the first indispensable prerequisite of drafting the statutes and the regulatory framework that will help guide, monitor, referee, and sanction football activities to be healthy, smooth, and profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, the draft statutes and election regulations in your hands are those required prerequisite in conjunction with the GFA regulations, the FIFA and CAF statutes for the road we must travel to create that modern and profitable Ghana football enterprise. And I know we can do it because we have done it before. Along with the key mandate of reviewing and drafting the GFA statutes, the NC also had a mandate of overseeing the daily operations and activities of the GFA. And these included several international competitions for our national teams. All these assignments were carried out appropriately, even though we did not come home with a haul of medals. On the domestic front, we organized the NC Special Competition in a novelty format comprising the Premier and Division 1 clubs. Arrangements were made by the NCA to have all the key matches produced and broadcast free to air on GTV to reach all corners of Ghana for the enjoyment of any Ghanaian home with a television set. The media, our friends in the media, were engaged to help hype the upcoming matches, and this helped tremendously to attract fans to match venues and on television. The interest in football in Ghana was gradually rising, and this strategy of consistently televising matches, supported by media analysis and promotion, must be sustained to help generate maximum viewing on all platforms. And this will help grow the interest of Ghanaian fans. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an important requirement for developing a sponsorship platform to enhance revenues to the league clubs. Unfortunately, several of the desired outcomes from the competition fizzled out due to their inability to abide by financial commitments made to the clubs, the referees, the match commissioners, and the venue officers. The lesson here, which must be forcefully underlined, is that human behavior responds positively to promises made and kept. The response is negative when promises are unkept. And we need to reinforce positive policy directions and sustain them. The general success of the NC Special Competition also included the selection of 2 Ghanaian clubs to the 2019 CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup, which were deservedly won by Kumasi Asante Kotoko FC and Ashanti Gold FC, respectively. We wish both of them the best of luck, and they have our full support. We wish to also appeal to corporate Ghana to join and assist, as the success of these 2 clubs will elevate brand Ghana and hence also put a shine on corporate Ghana and their export products and services across the African continent. In executing the statutes review mandate, we first met with almost all football constituents and other key stakeholders. This approach, we believe, was important to help the NC understand from these constituents their views of what had gone wrong with Ghana football, and most importantly, their suggestions and comments for reform. And we thank you for delivering. Ladies and gentlemen, here are some of the meetings we had. We met with club owners and administrators, referees, match commissioners, technical staff of the Black Stars, technical staff of all the national teams, player reps, male and female. We met with the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana. We conferred with the Sports Ministry. We met with the Parliamentary Select Committee on Youth and Sports. Of course, we engaged the media several times, radio, print, television, online platforms. We met with His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, and we were in touch with FIFA and the Government of Ghana Task Force. We attended 2 ordinary congresses, one FIFA in Paris, one CAF in Cairo. We attended one extraordinary congress, CAF at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. We had meetings with corporate Ghana on sponsorship matters. We met with the banks, the telecommunication companies, embassies. We met with representatives of the Spanish, Italian, and English football leagues. Major sponsorship was received from GMPC to support the NC special competition. We are grateful to the GMPC. The NC called on the football community, individuals, and the general public to provide suggestions and ideas that could help with the restructuring process, and we were fortunate to receive quite a few, including from Garka, your umbrella body, and many other sources. We formed 6 ad hoc committees made up of some of the most accomplished individuals in their fields of endeavor. We are compiling the excellent reports each committee presented that can serve as a reference manual for football practitioners, students, and researchers interested in football and sports in general. These reports covered areas that may help advise on football development policy, public and private sector investments in football, supported with specific tax incentives and subsidies, as well as academic training to ensure the proper and wholesome development of Ghana's youth in football. It is most telling that a huge investment that Ghana governments make in football are invariably towards the national teams, and especially the Black Stars, made up of mostly Ghanaians, the Ghanaian players who ply their trade in Europe and elsewhere, while the local players and the local football clubs, the crucibles of Ghana football's past and future, are left to fend for themselves under trying circumstances. We believe this calls for a rethink and reallocation of these huge expenditures to favor the development of the game at home and the strengthening of our local leagues. The strength and economic contribution of the nation's football to its GDP can only materialize if the local league is made stronger and profitable. If we achieve this, Ghana's young football players can be paid much better and help quench their insatiable dreams and preference to be sold to foreign clubs. Such dreams are not helpful to developing and sustaining a vibrant and profitable domestic football enterprise. There have been a few national football development proposals and plans in the past, but ladies and gentlemen, these have all been forgotten and replaced with ad hoc, unplanned, and unstrategized dreams of grandeur. We conjure our past glories as the basis for winning medals in the present, forgetting that there are new kids from other nations who are hungrier and more prepared. Yes, we are a fine football nation, rich in talent and tradition. And yes, we can let our past glories inspire and encourage us, but I'm afraid we will have to get on the drawing board to replan and invest properly. We train about 150 of Ghana's top referees by FIFA and CAF instructors to help freshen up their technical knowledge and to discuss honesty and transparency in refereeing. At the end of the 4 days exercise, the referees proclaimed their hallelujahs and we clapped, hoping for improvement in the art of refereeing in Ghana. We have more to do here. We launched the NC special competition with the intention to test credible solutions offered for dealing with some of the most unacceptable and alarming problems afflicting Ghana football, namely paltry attendance of matches by fans leading to low match day ticket revenues, lack of consistency in broadcasting football matches on television, resulting in a lack of TV production and broadcast rights revenues, as well as the absence of corporate sponsorship interest and hence sponsorship revenues. Ladies and gentlemen, the lack of payment of sponsorship and participation fees to clubs to help them get ready for the competition and finance the cost of transportation
You're still live on the JoyNews channel, our coverage of the Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress, and the chairman of the Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah, addressing Congress. As you heard, he's been touching on a number of things. First, highlighted the mandate of the NC, which, among other things, includes reviewing the statutes of the Ghana Football Association and also running the day-to-day affairs of the FA, which, according to him, they've done. He also tagged on some activities that they've been engaged in, the formation of the ad hoc committees as well. He also talked about refresher courses for referee and the institution of the NC special competition. Let's cross over. We'll cross over pretty shortly to the Physicians and Surgeons Center pretty shortly and get what remains of his address. So he mentioned the challenges also that they had in not getting sponsors to honor their commitments that resulted in difficulty in, paying the clubs for their preparation and transportation for the NC special committee. He also talked about the various bodies that they've had interactions with during the course of their job. Various stakeholders within the football communities were contacted. We cross over now and get what remains of his address to the Ghana Football Association Congress.
And return Ghana football activities, operations, and development to you, brothers and sisters of the football community. And in conclusion, I'd like to say the NC appreciates the opportunity to work with all of you and the pieces of advice received from many of you. Believe me, we truly listened. And we also appreciate and applaud the collaboration and assistance received from FIFA, especially our lead contacts, Mr. Luca Nicola, Manager of Governance, Mr. Veron Musengo Omba, Manager of Development for the Africa and Caribbean area, Mr. Solomon Modege, and others, as well as indirectly with Madam Fatma Samura, the General Secretary of FIFA, Mr. Amar Ahmad, the CAF President, and Mr. Gianni Infantino, the FIFA President. A great kudos and ovation goes to our own President Akufo-Addo for his direct involvement with the top echelon of CAF and FIFA during the emotionally charged atmosphere in which many Ghanaians were angry to the aftermath of the Anas number 12 video. Our President's personal interaction hit a chord of a once great African football nation whose bright lights have dimmed and whose top political leader at the time felt the need to crystallize the issue for global football chiefdom to appreciate and understand. President Infantino and his top brass were touched and declared to the amazement of football-loving observers that, and I quote, "Never again shall football administrators be allowed to hide behind FIFA and CAF statutes and commit various acts of malfeasance. Let FIFA and the government of Ghana form a task force and use FIFA statutes and the laws of Ghana to prosecute and punish acts of proven malfeasance in football, unquote. Ghana, he said, will be the test case, and if it goes well, the task force policy direction shall be rolled over to other federations in Africa and elsewhere. This is a landmark breakthrough, and we must applaud President Akufo-Addo, President Fantino, Madam Fatma Samura, and President Ahmad Ahmad for this historic and landmark bridge that will create FIFA and independent states crossover legislation for exorcising malfeasance from football. Its implementation and application architecture is now under consideration and development by FIFA and Government of Ghana lawyers. It is also important for this Congress to embrace this new landmark opening that should help focus our energy more on football development and less on the discussions of football politics and issues of bad governance. I wish the Congress fruitful deliberations today, and I pray for the rediscovery of our nation's football prowess that has presently dimmed, but together with respect towards one another and with determined dedication to rebuild, we shall triumph again and rise to the top of global football. May God bless Ghana football. Thank you.
For a president of the Normalization Committee, Dr.
So that's the chairman of the Ghana Football Association's Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah, addressing the Extraordinary Congress of the Ghana Football Association. Like I said earlier on, tagged on a number of issues, key among them being the institution of the NC Special Committee. Let's cross over live back now and hear what he has to say.
It should be reinstated to the Division 1 League status. That is for your information.
I'm saying, what's Dr. Kofi Amoah?
All right, thank you very much. We are still here with us on the continuous coverage of the GFA Normalization Committee's Extraordinary Congress. Now, this is a constitutionally mandated event which will eventually lead to an elective Congress which will come together the full administration of the Ghana Football Association, which will then mean that football will have been normalized. As it stands now, documents have to be interrogated, fine lines and fine print will have to be interrogated, and then the whole football family.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching our coverage of the Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress. We just heard the address by the chairman of the Normalization Committee, Dr. Kofi Amoah, touching on a number of issues. And he began by talking about the mandate, and he felt that, across the media, the mandate of the NC had been misconstrued or misinterpreted. So he had to lay bare what exactly their mandate was, and of course we know from what was given to them by FIFA, among other things, they were supposed to review the statutes of the Ghana Football Association, run the day-to-day affairs of the Ghana Football Association, and see to the organization of elections for the next GFA administration. Also talked about things that they've done over the period that they've been at the helm of affairs, organizing refresher courses for referees, instituting the NC special competition as well, and forming the ad hoc committees that played a role in reviewing the statutes of the Ghana Football Association also. So essentially, what is going to be done at the Extraordinary Congress is that the various stakeholders are going to be going through the draft statutes that has been presented to them, and then if it is adopted, then we are taking a step closer to having an elective Congress convened for an election to be held to elect the next leaders of the Ghana Football Association. We'll be crossing over to my colleague Nathaniel Ato and George Adu Jr., also Benedict Osudankwa is there as well. And let's go back to the physicians and surgeons and find out what is happening there.
On the basis of the newly revised GFA statutes. We would like to seize this opportunity to commend the Normalization Committee for the journey achieved so far under extremely difficult and challenging circumstances. Today's Congress marks an important milestone in the Normalization Committee's mandate insofar as new FIFA-conformed GFA statutes and the draft GFA electoral code are submitted to you, the delegates of the GFA, for adoption. In fact, the timely holding of elections of a new GFA Executive Committee, which is the last task of the Normalization Committee's mandate, depends on the adoption of these statutes and of the electoral code. The draft statutes on today's agenda are the fruit of a long, comprehensive consultation process between the Normalization Committee and FIFA. They are the result of numerous exchanges and discussions, both physically when we met in Paris and on numerous occasions over the phone, and actually also yesterday night until the very late hours at Dr. Amoa's house. We also understand that the Normalization Committee has held further meetings and consultations with the members of GFA during the last weeks on the draft statutes, and that on that occasion various comments and observations were submitted by you, the members of the GFA. These comments and observations were further analyzed by the Normalization Committee in collaboration with FIFA, and the large majority of them have been eventually incorporated in the draft statutes. All these changes, I understand, will be presented to you by the Normalization Committee shortly. We can now confirm that the draft statutes that will be presented to you by the Normalization Committee meet the requirements of FIFA. Consequently, their adoption by the Congress will pave the way for the timely holding of the elective Congress to put in place a new GFA Executive Committee and hence end the Normalization Committee's mandate. However, should the GFA Congress decide today not to approve the new draft GFA statutes, or should it decide to make substantial changes to the current draft, which will require a further time-consuming assessment by the relevant departments within FIFA, with obviously an unknown outcome, this would put on hold the holding of the elective Congress. Indeed, the proposed changes might, after review, ultimately be rejected by FIFA. So the ball is in your feet today. You hold the keys to move the GFA into the right direction with the adoption of the proposed statutes. May I continue? May I continue, please? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, FIFA's wish is to have Ghana football back in the news for the right reasons. Because football is being developed at all levels and for both genders, because Ghanaian clubs and national teams succeed, because the administration of football is exemplary, and not, as in the past, because of governance problems, misadministration, and ethical and disciplinary misconduct. In this context, we would also like to commend the Normalization Committee for finally having nominated prosecutors to investigate all allegations of ethical and disciplinary misconduct and eventually submit charges to the relevant GFA judicial bodies. The message should be clear to everyone. There is no place in football for unethical behavior. It is therefore also important that the joint FIFA, CAF, GFA and Government of Ghana task force continues to carry out its mandate to put in place the necessary safeguarding mechanisms to eradicate corruption in Ghanaian football. Once again, thank you very much for having us as observers at today's extraordinary Congress, and we wish you very successful deliberations. Thank you.
And that was FIFA's representative at the Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress. And he makes very interesting remarks. And of course, he makes it clear that what happens from here on depends on what the Ghana Football Association's Congress, or what we've come to call the football people, decide to do. If they adopt the draft statutes that has been presented to them, then it paves the way for the elective Congress to be convened and the elections to be held for the next football administration. And then if they decide to reject or make substantial alterations to it, then of course it's going to require time, which would mean a possible extension of the normalization committee's mandate. So that is where we are. And of course, I'm sure that the FA's Congress, the stakeholders will be at the crossroads. Do we adopt, the draft statutes as it is? Do we reject it, or do we make substantial alterations to it? All of it comes with various consequences, as has been spelled out by the FIFA rep. Let's cross over again and take a listen to a member of the Normalization Committee and former Ghana International, Samuel Osaikufo.
And the statutes that we are coming to just give it out, I believe and I hope everyone is going to adopt it. And I've seen Alaji Gruza coming in. Alaji, welcome. I wish this Congress is going to be a great one, so everybody will adopt the statutes that we are going to bring. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sammy. Dear delegates, as has been alluded to, we are now to the real issue of the statutes. Ms. Now Dofole Norte, a member of the committee and a lawyer by profession, spent a great deal of time in meeting with key football constituents over a period of time. And she listened, she came back with some of the suggestions and comments. A lot of them made a lot of sense. And we have discussed those with FIFA, and as Mr. Nicola just told you, a lot of them have also been accepted by FIFA. They conform with FIFA. So I'll have now go through these step by step, and then we take it from there. Now, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, delegates. Before I start, I'd want to acknowledge the presence of Justice Enini Eboa, a justice of the Supreme Court, who also happens to be the chairman of the FIFA Ethics Committee, and also my board chairman at the Legal Aid Board. Justice Eboa, you're welcome. Disciplinary Committee, sorry. Yes, as has been said already, you're all aware that after or just shortly before we distributed the, is this thing working? We distributed the, is this one working? So I don't have to hold it. And turn right. Is it working? Can you? It's not working. So I have to hold it. Okay, shortly before we distributed the Congress material, I held, on behalf of the NC, stakeholder engagements where I met most of the constituents, and I took your views with the promise that I would send those views to FIFA. If they are accepted, we would incorporate them in the final draft statutes. Luckily and fortunately for me, most of the things that I sent to FIFA, according to them, can be accommodated. So what I have done today is, before this discussion starts, to at least let you know the feedback that FIFA is happy to accommodate. So what I'm going to do right now is to project the draft statutes that I sent to you, and marked in red will be the suggestions that I got as a result of the stakeholder engagements, and then we'll project those ones so that in case somebody wants to discuss those issues, because they have already been accepted by FIFA, we don't waste time on those ones. So we'll do that very quickly, if that's acceptable to you. All right. Bossman. So we start with one of the things we had. So we start with the table of contents. The first thing was, one of the feedback I got was that you were unhappy with the name, the board chairman. You preferred that the chairman of the board should maintain the nomenclature of president of the board. FIFA did not have a problem with that, and so we have amended the Big Willie. So we have amended the content to read. That is part 3. We have president of the board of directors. That's the first change. And it runs through. Big with Article 12. 12. Let's go to 12. Now on the members, the first sentence, on the 2nd of August this year, on the 2nd of August this year, the President assented to the new Companies Code, Act 992, 2019. And therefore, we've changed it from Act, we've changed that. Because as of 2nd August, we have a new Companies Code. So we've made that change. Honestly, I really wish this thing would work. Can you get this to work so I don't have to? Now, also, under expulsion, Article 18. What happened to the light? Under Article 18. 18.2. The feedback I got, initially we had, I think it was more than 50%, but during the stakeholder, the feedback I got was that you prefer that it should be the presence of more than 75% of delegates representing the members eligible to vote at Congress to be able to expel a member. We took that on board, and so we've made that change. Again, when you come to part 2, that's Article 22, we now have the honorary president, not the chairman, and we've changed all that to president. Big Willie. Then we come to the elephant in the room, Article 26. Article 26, Big Willie. That's page 18. Okay. what we have done with Article 26 is this. Can I have some light in here? We initially came to you with 94 delegates. The reason being that FIFA was of the view that the 123 was unwieldy for, I mean, when you compare to other jurisdictions, even our English-speaking neighbors, Nigeria, who have a population far in excess of Ghana, with a Congress of 47. So, what we did, after we spoke to FIFA, we said, look, our people are not happy. The feedback I'm getting is that they agree in principle that the numbers should go down. There should be a reduction. The 94, they were not happy with the distribution. But there was a thinking that went into the distribution. Now, we have, as late as last night, again, revised this from 94 to 120, which is still less than 123. So we have complied with FIFA. Now, what we're proposing to you today is for the Division 1 league clubs to be restored to 48. But there is a rider, a proviso. When we get to the transitional provisions, I will explain how this will not be permanent, unfortunately. The explanation will come when I get to the transitional provision as to how it should be done. So, for the purposes of this Congress and the next one, the elective Congress, there will be 48 delegates from Division 1. Again, at this point, let me explain. We find ourselves in a very sticky situation. After we had sent you the papers for Congress, we were served with a judgment from the Court of Arbitration for Sport, asking us to restore Fire Rangers to Division 1. The difficulty we find ourselves in, and as you're very much aware, is that it's only Congress currently who can actually add on or reduce the numbers of clubs on the league table. So what we did was to simply comply with the CAS instruction. Now, at the next Congress, we will table a motion before you to decide whether we are going to have a 49 Division 1 league, because you have the power to do so, whether you will add on, whether you will reduce, we'll do the calculation and demote. It is entirely up to you. So please, hold your fire on that issue. Allow me to finish my statute adoption. At the next Congress, please, you take that decision. It is within your power. At least let's have that concession. Thank you. Now, so we have 48 Division 1. Each of the 16, and we are hoping that with the adoption of these statutes, you are therefore agreeing that we should create the additional 6 regions. Well, was that a no? Oh, I wasn't, it was a rhetorical question. So what it is that we're going to have 16 RFAs. Then for schools and colleges, 1 delegate. Beach soccer, 1 delegate. Futsal, 1 delegate. Security services, 1 delegate. PFAG, 6. Coaches Association, 2. Referees Association, 2. And what we have done, we took out, now, we haven't reached there. Please, when I finish my presentation, we'll hear from you. So, now, for juvenile clubs, we had them initially. We took them out and tried for them to be represented by schools and colleges. They are apparently very well organized, and they said, look, you need to restore us. They made a compelling argument, which made sense to us. And so we have restored juvenile on their own to run the Colts football at the district and regional levels, in association with the RFAs, we gave them 2 delegates, 120. That is our proposal to you. We will have the conversation about PFEG much later. Now, moving on. Can I have some? I think the light is bothering the cameraman, but it's also not. I can't see my paper. Can I have some light? Big Willie, next one. Sorry. Now, the next change we have effected is with, sorry. Now, 37. What we have done with 37 is not much, but we have done 37.4. We have amended 37.4, and we have changed it to president, vice president, based on the feedback we got, unless you've decided to revert to what we originally had, which will make me happy. So, 4. Big Willie, 4. Can't see. Now, the mandate of the president, the vice president, and members of the board of directors shall be a term of 4 years. There was no difficulty with that. Their mandate shall immediately begin after the end of the Congress, which has elected them. There was no difficulty with that. Now, no person, this is the addition, no person may serve as a president for more than 2 terms in office. We've capped it. Whether consecutive or not. Now, any other member of the board of directors, including the vice president, may serve for no more than 2 terms of office, whether consecutive or not. Now, any partial term beyond 24 months shall count as a full term. This is the addition we have done in terms of a review based on the feedback. What it means, and I should clarify, because the question was asked that, look, if I've served as a board member for 2 terms, can I then later run for president? The answer is yes. Now, you come to Article 41. Again, we now have a president of the GFA and not the chairman of the board. So if you don't get Jubilee House, you can fall on GFA president as your fallback position. Now, Article 42. What we have done, based on the feedback we got, and we thought what we had was, what can I say, was sufficiently protective of the situation we found ourselves in not too long ago, where contracts are signed by the president and we cannot, in fact, find copies and nobody seems to know the contents. So we put it in that the president should sign, the CEO should witness. Based on the feedback I got as a result of the stakeholder, we have changed that to read that all contracts, in red, all contracts must be signed by the CEO upon a resolution of the board of directors and be witnessed by the president. So that's the concession we've made. Now, the T. Again, during the stakeholder, the T. Members were of the view that in the absence of the CEO, the board of directors should nominate one of the deputies to act in his stead. Usually, it should be the senior-most deputy to act in the stead. We took that on board. FIFA can accommodate it. It's the change we've put it in. So. Now, the next thing is Article 47. Article 47, and when we met with the RFAs, or representatives of the RFAs, they had a few concerns. Under the E, they said we used the word amateur referees. It offended them. We're taking it out. So we have referees in the region. And then we omitted, they drew attention to the fact that the Congress actually has 2 delegates from the DFAs. So we've incorporated that. So that is another change. And then when you come to 40, again, under, still on the RFAs, when you come to 47, 47(8), F, 47F. So one person elected by the referees in the, this has to do with the delegates that go to the RFA Congress. They want one person elected by the referees in the region to represent them at Congress. We didn't have a problem with that because indeed at this Congress we do have a referee representation, and we didn't think, since we want to mirror what is at the top, we didn't have a problem with that. Now, the next one, therefore, will be, sorry, we made a little boo-boo. We omitted in our draft statutes, we dealt with the membership of the Ethics Committee. However, we were silent on the prosecutors. And in order for us to touch our regulations or review our regulations, we need to mention them in the statutes as a basis for dealing with them in the regulations. And therefore, we have introduced an entirely new Article 59 to cover that. So you won't find it in your pack, I'm sorry. So, Big Willie. So we have Article 59, which says that the board, sorry, it's the board. Big Willie, you have to change that. It should be the board, sorry. Now, so the language should read, the board shall appoint as many prosecutors as necessary, not possible. Big Willie, please change that. As necessary for the smooth and effective prosecution of cases. A prosecutor may be a lawyer of at least 5 years standing at the bar, a retired police officer from the rank of ASP onwards who has done some prosecution in the court whilst in active service, or any other persons the GFA may deem fit. The prosecutor shall fulfill the same independence criteria as the chairman and deputy chairman of the independent committees and the judicial bodies, as stipulated in Article 53, paragraph 2 of these statutes. So, the yardstick for the chairman of our committees will be the same yardstick to judge our prosecutors and, of course, our ethics committee members. So that is an addition. So from here, the numbering changes. So we now have, so Article 60, disciplinary measures. I don't have anything there. Then we come to 63, now 64, the financial period. Now the financial period will be from 1st July to 30th June. We got that feedback, it's accepted. We've done the change, so that's that. Please put that in red. because it's actually a change. Yes. So now, Article 66, now 67. So let's go to 66. Now 67. Go up, up. Yeah. Now, when we met with our stakeholders, on this particular one, they were of the view that it is high time we stopped using the government auditors, or that is the Audit Service of Ghana, to audit the GFA. Because when FIFA comes in, they use the internationally recognized bodies to do our audits. And so we went back to FIFA and said, look, this is it. And they said, we can accommodate it. So we have actually incorporated it. So the new Article 67, formerly 66, reads, so we've added on, the independent and external auditors appointed, sorry, I need my eyes, appointed by the Congress shall audit on a yearly basis the management accounts of the finance department in accordance with the appropriate principles of accounting and present a report to Congress. The auditor shall be appointed for a period of 3 years and be internationally recognized entities. So we are looking at the KPMGs, the Mazars, the PwCs, no longer the Audit Service of Ghana. We thank them for their service. That is the feedback we got from you. It can be accommodated, we've put it in. Now, there's a rider, and in compliance with the company's code, the audited accounts shall be published in the national dailies, as is done with most companies before you go for AGM. Congress. Now, with the membership subscription, here we have to thank Alaji Grusa. He made a compelling case for a drastic reduction. We took it on board, and so my avarice has been reduced from 10,000 to 5,000, 2,500, and 1,000 for all others, including the women premier clubs. That's the 67, now 68. Now, we have introduced Article 80 as the last article. You don't have it in your pack, it's new. And this is because you would all recall that before we had this Congress, we had to deal with the issue of reckoning of time. We have 2 articles in the current statutes that deal with how time should be reckoned. And so to give 14 days notice of this extraordinary Congress to adopt statutes has become a 3-week affair, because we've had to take out holidays and weekends and all that. We have cleaned it up a bit, and so we are using the language of calendar days. And so this is how we are proposing we reckon time. So for the purposes, so that will be the new Article 80. You don't have it, but this is what it looks like. So for the purposes of computation of time in these statutes or any regulations or rules of the GFA, days shall be counted as calendar days. Simple. So if I say 21-day notice, I start counting 21 days from, and then it just goes through. I don't start taking out weekends and holidays and all that. Now, Saturdays and Sundays shall be counted. 1 day shall mean 5 p.m. of the next day, and 24 hours shall mean 5 p.m. on the next day. So this is our proposal to you on how we should reckon time. Then we come to the transitional provisions. We come to the transitional provisions. We have done some slight amendments. Now, and this one is not as a result of stakeholder engagement, but it's I'm having to hand over. I've enjoyed the power, and so I'm giving myself some last-minute powers to do a few things, if you don't mind. So, but again, we need, because of the election, we realized that we needed a few more hands. I mean, there's just 3 of us. And so we asked FIFA if we can, therefore, get a few more hands on deck. Because what we have in terms of a roadmap to run the election, especially with the RFAs, we have to go to all 10 regions. There's 3 of us in the secretariat. So we need more hands, and so we've asked and we have been accommodated in terms of the fact that we are now allowed to, during their term of mandate, the members of the NC of the GRA, we are exceptionally powered, I love those words, exceptionally powered to form committees for the organization and supervision of the electoral process. Now, the persons who we bring on board to help us run this electoral, and this is only for the next electoral process, that's it. The persons that we bring on board will have to fulfill the independence criteria stipulated under Article 53, Part 2 of these statutes. So that is the addition, and the rationale being that there are 3 of us and we need hands. So if it's acceptable to you, we can adopt that so that we are able to co-opt some of you where necessary, if you can be independent, to help us run this election. Now, Big Willie, go up a bit. Then we added on, before, you know, when I got to Article 26, I did say that when I get to the transitional provision, I will explain how we intend to deal with the numbers of the Division 1. So what we have done is to propose to you that, and this is just in bullet points, we would, of course, later explain through regulations how this can be achieved. Now, the number of delegates representing Division 1 League will be reduced to 18. At the latest, by the next 2 football seasons, following the adoption of these statutes. So what we are talking about is playing a national league and pruning down the numbers within a 2-year period. If this is acceptable to you, we restore Division 1 to 48 for the next 2 football seasons, which we would use. So later, when you take the successful board members and candidates take over, what we expect them to do is to then roll out a program to reduce Division 1 over 2 seasons to 18. So for now, we restore them to 48. Okay. Then, the eligibility criteria for the board of directors of the GFA. So that's the last one. No, I'm coming. Not the. Now, during our stakeholder engagement, my attention was drawn to the fact that the way we had actually captured the 3 was excluding or was somehow not taking into account players. So we had to find a way of changing the language so that at least they can also, if they can, solicit your vote, or they can convince you to vote for them, be president of the FA, because we're told that the language we had kind of excluded them. And so we now have, must have played an active role in association football, example, as a player or an official within FIFA, CAF, or GFA, etc., for 2 of the last 5 years before being proposed as a candidate. So this is what we have. So that this is what we have by way of a change. Right. So I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah. Luca. Dear delegates, thank you for your rapt attention.
It's still live on the JoyNews channel, and of course, it's our coverage of the Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress. The physicians and surgeons will be crossing over pretty shortly, but you heard from Na Odofolo Norte, a member of the Normalization Committee, who has taken us through the draft statute that has been presented to the Ghana Football Association's Congress, and like has been highlighted, if it's adopted, then we move to the next stage where an elective Congress will be convened. If it is rejected outright, it means that essentially the NC will be staying on a while longer. If substantial alterations are made, again, it requires time, and so the NC will be staying on a while longer. Let me cross over and let's join my colleagues, Nathaniel Lato, who are engaging on what has transpired so far, and Nathaniel Lato, George Addo Jr., and Gary L. Smith.
Other post-event will stall, and every other post-event after this extraordinary Congress will be held on. That gives a very big indication. Of course, it got a bit of a response and a bit of a spontaneous response from the delegates in the hall. So it's just giving a clear message that, look, if you don't get the job done today, then it means that we're going to be under the normalization process or the normalization structure for a very long time.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, in simple terms, just for the benefit of viewers as well, we have come to a point where the Normalization Committee set up committees to draft new legislation and also new statutes for Ghana football to be moving into a new era in. Those statutes were sent to FIFA. There was a back and forth between themselves and the Normalization Committee, and those were agreed upon. Now, according to what he has said, and his name is Luca Nicola, is the head of FIFA Governance Services, if what was agreed with FIFA, between FIFA and the Normalization Committee, is not approved today, then indeed the Normalization Committee will continue their work unabated. And that is something that the football people do not want, because they want the Normalization Committee's work gone, done, so that they will be in charge. But then, yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Well, interesting thoughts there. But from what has gone on so far, the body language of the delegates and all of that, you think that we're going to get the job done today, George?
I really hope so. But the truth is that FIFA would not oversee anything that is not in line with their statutes. FIFA know their statutes better than anyone, and it will be interesting to want to feel that our clubs or our football people know more than FIFA. So it's an interesting position to take at the start. It's almost like a sucker punch, and it waters down all that we saw at the beginning of this, that people wanted to come out and talk about a few things they were not excited about in the statutes. But to be fair, I know we'll go through the key amendment areas, but to be fair, so far, a lot of what has gone on in terms of the announcement of the amended statutes has looked watertight. And even if an opportunity is given for people to come up and debate, I'll be wondering how they will go about it. It's really going to be a strong one to go through this. And I think the way the sucker punch has gone and everything is cooling down, we should find a way through this today.
We surely should find a way through. And so we'll go straight into the key areas that were touched on. These are key areas that we'd want to do analysis on. Now, one key area which many delegates, made comments about in the lead up to the start of this Congress, this extraordinary Congress, was that of the composition of Congress. Now, in previous times, we had the composition being 123 after putting together all the constituent bodies. Now, once the drafts were sent to FIFA, the suggestion from FIFA was that the number be dropped. Now, 94 was a figure that was arrived at, but after that, the football family said, well, no, we still have bigger interest, and we still should have bigger representation in there. So a figure of 120 was reached. Now, it's just three numerals down, 123.
Yeah.
Any real difference?
Well, obviously, as now the Foley said, 120 is still less than 123. But the context should be important, yes, for us to be given. Now, 123 or 120, why is this significant? It's significant because those who vote laws into place, and let's remember that Congress is the statutory decision-making body of Ghana football. They make laws, they ensure that we go in a specific direction. The argument from FIFA is that countries with populations of what? Nigeria have a population of 150 to 200 million.
5 times the
times the size of Ghana.
44. Nigeria have 44. Yeah.
They just have 44 members of Congress. Zimbabwe have 75 or so. You know, why does a country of 30 million people need 123 people making decisions for them? And if you think about it, it does make sense. So they should find a way to coalesce some of the interest groups into blocks to reduce the number as well. As you said, it came back from 94, but our people are saying that it should go to 120. And it will be interesting to see how FIFA is going to respond to that.
Yeah, because I understand FIFA in that, like Gary made the point about the electoral college. It's actually what separates one association from another, because you need a very strong base of people who think well and can get wonderful decisions through. If you have so many people, as our numbers has been, you have the luxury of just putting in, 1 or 2 guys.
So clearly for you, it is about the...
Yeah, it's about limiting the numbers.
The
qualitative element. I think so. Yeah. If we limit the number for you, if we say we want an electoral college of 44, you would have to think again about who you're putting forward. And therefore, we have strong heads in there. We have seen Congress over the years, and we've had issues where there are 1, 2, 3 guys who think things should be done in a certain way. But because the majority of the guys have decided whether they decide they have some affinity or they want to support someone, they can just decide to overrule a good decision at Congress. So I think that it's important that we come down. I would have expected 90, or I would have expected 80, because if Nigeria is doing 44, I don't like the comparisons though. But it's just to make the point here. Nigeria are 5 times bigger than Ghana. 5 times bigger than Ghana. So why should they be doing 44? Why should others be doing 30? Why should others be doing 50? Why should Ghana then be doing 123? I think we really need this to come down, and because our history has suggested that when we go to Congress, there's too much of the no, and the majority often find a way. I think if we limit the numbers, we'll get the quality, and there will be a lot to put on the table in terms of discussions.
Well, a lot in terms of the discussions, but the interesting thing here, however, is that FIFA doesn't have a problem with that, and that's what Na Odufuli Note has indicated here. So there's a possibility that this may be adopted finally.
Well, yeah,
120.
that's what it's looking like.
Well, so because at the end of the day, it's the football family that's deciding, and they've decided on 120. FIFA doesn't necessarily have a problem with it, so we're going to go with 120.
Yeah, well, no problems.
So
at least there's been a reduction.
So mass decisions will continue.
Yeah, it's a problem. I really hope they can do something about this. Once the clubs have moved from this and it's within the FIFA, regulations or the statutes that we can do below 123. They have a point to do 120, but I still think we have too much. It's a huge number.
And talking about quality, let's look at the substance of both sides of the argument. Yes, we can say we want a qualitative 60 or 70 or 80. But the fact of the matter is that the current structure means we have, 48 Division 1 and 2 clubs, or whatever it is, Premier League teams. They all have to be represented up to a point. The constitution of the GFA suggests that all these people must have a vote at some point or other. Schools have won. Certain interest groups have won. Now, you recall that a couple of months ago, and this was just rumor, that the government, in wanting to cut down on these things or in wanting to influence football so that we don't make the mistakes that we made in the past 15 years, wanted to bring in other interest groups. So what we heard was that they wanted to bring a representative of places like the army, the police,
former players.
And today we have heard that the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana and ex-players want to have 6 people.
But Gary, that's an interesting point where I was going to come to. But PFAG is a key body within our football setup,
and it is
valid to
Yes. So that all goes into the
number.
Should it be 120 or 123 or 90? We can have 123, but we can all sit here and argue a great case of 123 and say that we want 123 people, and say that we don't want the 123 to be made up of what we used to have at first, but we want more people. Look, if you came right now and said that you want 123 people, but you wanted interest groups of football-loving people who are the main people who follow the game. George and I were having a discussion out there where we were saying, after all is said and done, Nathaniel, whether it's 120 or 123 or anything, those decision makers must remember, but they are not the most important people in football. Who are the most important people in football? The fans. The people watching at home are those who are the most important people in football. The business executives you and I want to woo, whose monies we want in there. Next year by this time, we want a league to have started. We want the biggest companies in Ghana to be having their logos onto our Premier League, our Division 1. It is those people whose interest. So what we are doing here is great, but really it is cosmetic.
See, and I'd make the point about it. I like it that at some point everyone must have a taste of having to elect somebody. But I can also say that Division 1 can have their Congress, or they can have their elections and bring or bring 8 or bring 10
solid people.
Division 2 can bring 10 referees. You don't need everybody there, because remember, it's the same statutes you are dealing with. So how are others able to do it and we're not able to do it? You don't need everybody there, or else it will come to a point where journalists will have a face and will also say we need somebody in there, and the numbers can go to 200 because there's so many bodies around.
That in one of the rumors we heard that they said that journalists, even because of the significant role we play in the football process, should have one representative from the official, Sports Writers Association of Ghana there, who would have a vote as well. And you look at all these things and you realize that, look, football is bigger than the current structure that we have.
So we can get tighter stuff. I mean, if you have Division 1 having to elect 12 or 10, bringing them to the electoral college, you have referees having to do that. You don't need everybody. because already we are doing it. We are doing it with some of the constituent bodies, where we say club football, we say grassroots.
So there's a quota system, more or less.
System, yes, and you can get right heads coming up, I think.
So if you just joined us, we're still here bringing you the continuous coverage of the extraordinary Congress of the GFA's Normalization Committee happening here at the College of Physicians and Surgeons Ridge in Accra. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I'm here with Gary L. Smith and George Addo Jr. We're just going through key elements within the draft document, which will be sent back to FIFA for final approval, but it needs to be adopted by Congress, which is the biggest decision-making body under our football, after which we can clear the path for an elective Congress, which is one thing that the football family has been waiting for a long time. Now, key things before we move on to other areas are that there are 2 delegates per Premier League team, one of the 16 Premier League teams. Now, 8 representatives from the Women's League Board as well. Also, the Referees Association has 2 representatives. The coaches has 2 representatives. There are representatives from the security services and also the schools and colleges. Quickly, touching on, women's football and the Premier League clubs especially.
2 delegates?
For what?
I mean, if 2 delegates,
so 2 delegates per Premier League club.
That's what I'm saying. It's one Premier League club. They should, and most of the time, because of the voting in blocks, a Premier League club would have decided we're going this way. So the 2 agree on one thing. Hardly would you have 2 people from one club disagreeing on where it's going, because the club will have.
So we're better off just having one.
One person can represent that. So 2 is excess. You don't need 2 people.
It's a bit superfluous.
Yeah, sure. All right. So in terms of the representation of Division 1 league clubs, they have 48, and this is a discussion that will be held later, according to Na Odufole Norte. I'm very sure that at the elective Congress as well, these issues will be brought to the fore or brought to the floor of a Congress. Let's also now talk about one key area of interest, which is that of the term of office of the president, the eventual president or the leader of the Ghana FA. Now, she mentioned that what has been tabled within the draft document is that no leader of the FA should serve more than 2 terms, okay? So whether it's consecutive or not, no leader should serve more than 2 terms. Coming in as welcome news. I mean, I've heard some football people. I mean, I've heard some of the club representatives here today say, hey, I mean, why is it that we want to align ourselves with what is happening on the political front here in Ghana?
Scale.
Because on the national scale, it is in our constitution that no president can run for more than 2 terms of 4 years. And over here, we realize that the same thing is happening. In FIFA, for instance, it's not more than 3, right? Not more than 3 terms of 4 years. So some of the people here that I've spoken to say, I feel that we should do it in accordance with what FIFA is doing and not necessarily what we do, because that is our mother body. That is we're aligning with standards of FIFA.
Well, that may be true, but we are in a, as we like to say back when I was in school, you want to pass policies that are locally global, relevant locally, but globally will make sense. If somebody comes from the global level and looks at the local statutes that you have, he's going to ask the first question: what is the context in which this decision has been taken? And that is what makes our association different from Togo, Benin, Nigeria, and the rest. We have history, and that is it. Our recent football history suggests that for now, this is what is healthy for us. If after 16 years, we come to a realization that, we've had a couple of GFA presidents whose work has been so stellar that we may have wanted them to have another term in office, then we can all agree as a nation. And let's not forget that statutes really usually come out of what people feel out there. Yeah. And so if the word on the street is that, George Addo Jr. became a GFA president. His 1 term was great, his 2nd term. But as a leader, he was such a visionary that maybe what we should do is to give an unlimited term of office. No problem. Indeed, our most recent example was Nyantechi. When the rules were changed for him in 2010, 2011, if his rule had gone a certain other way than it did, and we had ushered in a period of prosperity, of trophy winning and all that, we wouldn't have him here. And would have said unlimited terms of office were okay. So we are here because of our recent history. And so let's just err on the side of caution at the moment. If we need to change, laws are made for man. Man was not made for the law. We will come back here and we will change it.
Okay, Gary, George, very brief comments. We need to go back on the floor.
I'm very excited, but I don't know why anyone would say there's a problem if we're aligning with what our government is doing or what the national terms is. Well, I just think that football needed it even than the national whatever it is. Government, we need it better than government. We need it.
Okay, so 2 terms of office, it's limited. You do it whether it's consecutive or not. Nobody should run beyond 2 terms. These are new proposals being tabled before the football family here in Ghana, and of course the biggest decision-making body is right up there at the top of this building in the main hall, taking these key decisions. Earlier, the representative of FIFA in charge of governance issues stated clearly that we need to take decisions here and firm up everything from this event. Otherwise, it will stall the whole process of wanting to reach an elective Congress, which everybody is looking forward to. So we'll go back to the main floor because Division 1 league clubs are putting together, or they're putting up certain arguments which they feel should be, inculcated or be factored into this final document.
And see if we are deviating from what FIFA advises us to do. Article 26. Article 26. Delegate and vote. Delegate and vote. We are proposing that we change to composition of Congress. Composition of Congress. Instead of delegate and vote, we change to composition of Congress. Then the Congress shall be composed of, now you are moving to 120 per what she presented, but from the document sent to us as Congress document, we have 94. So I'm going to put that one aside and deal with the 120 and what we are proposing. In fact, as we sought reason why we were reducing the Congress numbers from 123 to the then 94, we were told that FIFA now thinks that our Congress size is too large for a country of 30 million population. And so we should reduce it significantly. Now we are going back to 120. So we took cue from that and actually did a good job by reducing it from 123 to 110 instead of the 120 being now proposed by the NC. So with 110, the composition is such that we're going to have 16 Premier League clubs with 32 delegates. So 2 delegates from each of the 16 Premier League clubs, making 32 delegates. Women's Elite League competition, 4 delegates from the Women's Elite competition clubs. Now 4 delegates, I want to draw your attention to this. Even at this Congress, women do not have representation. At this Congress, women do not have representation. If you see any woman here, the woman is representing a constituency body or in a different capacity, not as women's league clubs, per the statute of the Ghana Football Association. So we are moving from 0 to 4. We are moving from 0 representation to 4 for women league clubs. 48 Division 1 league clubs, 1 from each. Then from the Regional Football Association, now per what we have in the local governance system of Ghana, we have 16 administrative regions instead of 10. And so we're already taking that into consideration, that we used to have 10 Regional Football Association, now we have 16 regions. And so we'd have 16 RFAs with 1 delegate coming from each of the 16 RFAs, making 16 delegates at Congress. Schools and colleges, 1 delegate. Beach soccer, 1 delegate. Futsal, 1 delegate. Security services, 1 delegate. PFAG, 2 delegates. Coaches Association, 1 delegate. Referees Association, 1 delegate, and juvenile football, 2 delegates, making members of 110. So, Article, second, PFAG, 2 delegates. 2 delegates. Article 27. Article 27. Media. Media will be observers, as we've always been. Yes. Even at FIFA and CAF, there's no Congress presentation for media. They were always present as observers and media to cover. Article 27. The text here is areas of authority. We are proposing powers of Congress. Powers of Congress. Powers of Congress. And Article 27E says election of 6 other members to the board of directors, at least one of whom shall be a woman. We are deleting the entire text because what we are proposing is that there will not be election at the floor of Congress for members of the Executive Council. The only election to take place at the floor of Congress will be to elect the President of the Federation. So the election of 6 members at the floor of Congress, we are deleting the entire text for Article 27E. Article 30. Article 32. Article 32 reads, with the old text, elections within GFA shall be conducted in accordance with the GFA regulations on elections. We are proposing this. Elections shall be conducted in accordance with the GFA statutes and regulations on election. This matter of interpretation. So if we are adding the statutes here. Elections shall be conducted in accordance with the GFA statutes and regulations on elections. 3, the old text reads, the election for the available positions of the board of directors shall take place by position. Every candidate in the election for the available positions of the board of directors shall be proposed by at least 5 members. Each member shall support 1 candidate for each given position only. A bit ambiguous. So our suggestion is that the election for the available positions of the Executive Council shall take place alternatively in sequel of the vacant positions. So if there's vacant position in Premier League Board will do. If the vacant position from the Division 1 League Board, they would conduct. And we are suggesting that Article 30 Clause 5, which reads in the old text, for the election of the other available positions of the board of directors, the candidate who receives the most votes in respect of the free seat shall be elected. Because there's no election for board or ESCO at the floor of Congress, we are deleting that. And then 8, Article 38. Blank ballot papers, invalid votes, or electronic votes manipulated in any other way, as well as abstentions, shall be disregarded when calculating the majority. Seven. In case, okay, 7, Article 37. In case of tied vote in any elections of any body of GFA, 2 new ballots shall be conducted in accordance with the procedure set forth by the present provision. If the tied vote remains, the relevant position shall remain vacant until a new elective Congress convenes to proceed with new elections according to these statutes with the same candidates. Ours is that in case of a tied vote in any election of anybody of GFA, 2 now. Okay, let's move forward.
Excuse me. Can I say something?
Yes, sir, President.
It seems you have quite a few suggestions.
Yes, we do.
No problem with that. I wish we will have received that. So you are you speaking for the whole body?
Yes. Well, with few exceptions, now with exceptions.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring what? Another section bring the you know what you do? You could have presented it to us.
He's not speaking for the two criminals. He's not. I have blood challenge. So you are alone. Aladdin, you are alone. One clap. Can we comport ourselves here, please?
You see the problem.
Yeah. No, the suggestion is that if you do it this way, it will make it a bit smooth than everybody getting up to talk about one article and all after the other. We do a presentation and then we discuss this.
How many more do you have?
No, not much, just few.
But people,
only the highlighted ones with yellow. So what I'm presenting is the position of the clubs.
Okay, you know, when we send the documents to you for this Congress, we stated that it will be appreciated and make things more smoothly if you submit to us ahead of time these kind of comments. So, but today is I'm not saying that you shouldn't, you know, you should, but it's making the procedure which will lead to adoption almost impossible. Because when you finish yours, another person will come and do.
Mr. President, I crave your indulgence. Now, you realize that your colleague, Madam Now, took time to engage some of us. And we duly presented some of our views. It's the reason why we are jumping most of it. Because most of the things we presented, she has adopted most of them. That is why we are jumping. So just few.
But you didn't present all that to her.
No, but subsequently we met. Subsequently we met, and she didn't meet us, isn't it? So, if Mr. President, if I can help
you go through and finish. You go through and finish.
Okay.
We will see. Please allow him to finish. He says he only have a few left. How many more do you have left, sir?
Just few.
Two more. Yeah. Okay. He has two more. So go ahead. Okay. Please order. Let's listen to him.
Okay, Article 31(2), Ordinary Congress. Article 31(2), Ordinary Congress. The Executive Council.
Order, please. Please hear him. Allah, he's on the floor. Please.
The Executive Council shall fix the date and venue for a meeting of Congress. The meeting shall be notified in writing at least 14 days in advance. The original text was 45 days. 45 days. We want it reduced to 14 days. I think that it's one of the problems when it is that this very Congress had to be postponed because we did not meet the statutory. So we are trying to reduce the days from 45 to 14 days. Okay. 33(2). Instead of 50%.
Please, order. We can, please.
Instead of 50% requirement, we are proposing 20%. Article 33(3). Instead of 30 days, we are proposing 10 days.
33(2).
Yes. 20% of the members of GFA instead of 50%. For extraordinary Congress.
You'll be having every
Which one will come at a cost? Which one? But you are requiring 50%. 50 and 20% of members. Which one will require more cost? You are talking of larger numbers. I'm talking of small number.
The easiness of them. How do you?
Okay.
To be very frequent. But you go ahead and finish.
Let's go to 30. Let's go to Article 37, Executive Council. Article 37, Executive Council.
Yes.
Okay. The Executive Council, the original text, is the Board of Directors consists of 11 members constituted as follows. 1, the chairman to be elected by Congress, 6 members to be elected by Congress, at least one of whom shall be a woman, 1 rep from the Premier League, 1 rep from Division 1, 1 rep from the RFAs, 1 rep from the RFAs, this is the text from the NC, and 1 rep from the PFAG. Our proposal is this, that the Executive Council consists of 15 members constituted as follows. The President to be elected by Congress, 6 representatives from the Premier League, 4 representatives from Division 1, 1 representative from Women's League, who shall be a woman, and 3 representatives from the Regional Football Association. That's our proposal. Now, 37.4, it's important we listen to this. 37.4.
Mr. Champon. Mr. Champon.
37.4.
Mr. Champon.
The mandate of the chairman, the vice chairman, and members of the board of directors shall be a term of 4 years. Their mandate shall immediately begin after the end of the Congress, which has elected them. No person may serve as a member of the board of directors for more than 2 terms of office, whether consecutive or not. Any partial term beyond 24 months shall count as a full term. This is our proposed text. The mandate of the President, the Vice President, and members of the Executive Council shall be a term of 4 years. Their mandate shall immediately begin after the end of the Congress which elected them, where we may change. No person shall serve as President and Executive Council member for 2 and 3 terms of office, respectively. So we are proposing 2 terms for President and 3 terms for members of the Executive Council, if you listen to the text. Whether consecutive or not, any partial term beyond 24 months shall count as a full term. Now, this is also important because it must be a creature of statute. Previous terms served as Vice President or as a member of the Executive Council shall not be considered in determining the term limit of a president. So if someone serves as ESCO member after 2 or 3 terms, now goes to contest to be president, the term served, or if you serve as maybe 1 term as ESCO member and you're elected as president, you start from 0. The term served as ESCO member does not count when you begin your term as president. 6, if a position or up to 50% of positions on the board of directors becomes vacant, the board of directors shall fill the position or positions in question until the next Congress, when a replacement shall be elected for the remaining period of office. In case any of the positions of the members representing the Premier League, the Division 1, the Regional Football Association, and or the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana becomes vacant, the respective entity shall promptly appoint a replacement. We are proposing this text. If a position or up to 50% of the positions on the ESCO becomes vacant, the ESCO shall fill the position in question until the next Congress, when a replacement will be elected for the remaining period of office. In case any of the positions of the members representing the Premier League, the Division 1, or the Regional Football Association, or the Professional Football Association of Ghana becomes vacant, the respective entity shall promptly appoint a replacement. It's the same thing. Article 38, meetings. The board of directors shall meet at least once a month. It then brings us to a minimum of 12 meetings in a year. Minimum of 12 meetings in a year. So we are proposing that the Executive Council shall meet at least 6 times a year. 6 times a year, at least. So here, once the minimum is 12, our minimum is 6 here. Article 44. 44E. Is the role of the General Secretary. E. He shall play a consultative, no. K, Article 44K. He will propose to the Board of Directors for approval the appointment of Deputy Chief Executives. All other appointments may be made by the CEO and his management team, including the Human Resource Manager. This text therefore means that when the GFA or the ESCO appoint the GS, the General Secretary would then appoint his deputies and other members. We thought that was a bit of too much power to the General Secretary. He will propose, the text we are proposing, he will propose to the Executive Council for approval the appointment of Deputy General Secretaries. All other appointments may be made by the General Secretary subject to the approval of the Executive Council. So he wants us to end R. R. The CEO shall represent GFA in negotiations with third parties. The CEO shall represent the GFA in negotiations with third parties. We thought that was too much power for the CEO or the General Secretary alone. So what we are proposing is that the General Secretary and any other person mandated by the Executive Council shall represent GFA in negotiations with third parties, so that there's a representation from the ESCO as well. Now, if you go to T, the text here is that in the absence of the CEO, he shall nominate one of the deputies to act in his stead. It means that if the CEO or the General Secretary is traveling, maybe Mr. Jojefi is the senior most deputy, but because the CEO is friends or likes Mr. Abekome, who is a junior to Jojefi, you would then nominate him to superintend over the senior deputy. We thought that it's not appropriate in terms of governance. So in the absence of the General Secretary, the most senior deputy shall act in his stead. Okay, thank you. Thank you for accepting that one. Okay, so very few left. Now let's go to Article 49. Article 49. Take us to Article 49. Standing committees. Article 49, standing committees. The proposed standing committees from the NC is that A, Referees Committee, B, Players Committee. We are of the view that the standing committees of the FA should consist of the following: A, Referees Committee, B, Player Status Committee, C, Competitions Committee, D, Dispute Resolution Chamber, E, Audit and Compliance Committee. We believe that these should also be standing committees of the Federation. So very few left here. Now, 51. The Referees Committee shall be made up of 5 members, headed by a chairman, at least one of whom shall be a woman, 2 retired FIFA referees, and 2 independent members to be appointed. Now the text will make just slight amendment. The Referees Committee shall be made up of 5 members, headed by a chairman, at least one of whom shall be a woman, and 2 referees and 2 independent members. I think it's basically the same thing. Independent bodies, Article 53. Article 53, independent bodies. Institutional independence. The independent bodies under the draft statute have elections committee. It's not listed even. we are suggesting a list of the independent bodies under the Federation. There shall be independent committees of the GFA as follows: judicial bodies, elections committee, ethics committee, and audit and compliance committee. We believe that this should be independent. And when we say independent, we mean that members of these committees shall be elected at Congress, not appointed by the president or the ESCO, shall be elected at Congress, so they can be that independent. We're almost done, Mr. President and Madam Vice President, we're almost done. Oh, we're almost done. Okay, financial period and that stuff, you already adopted them, so I think there's no point. Okay, Article 64. We are taking out, under revenue, we are taking out player image rights. Player image right. Sammy, you're a professional player. I do not think that the federation would have any right over your image. It's between you and the club you play for. The National Association do not claim image right from professional players. So, okay. Article 70, competitions, under competitions.
Live from the College of Physicians and Surgeons, our coverage of the Ghana Football Association's extraordinary Congress there. And earlier we went through the draft statutes, and of course now the Folinote went through all of it. The proposals that have been tabled by the NC in respect of aspects of the Ghana Football Association's statutes that have been reviewed. Now, what is left is for the highest decision-making body of Ghana football to adopt those statutes. But as you can see, counter proposals are being made, and specific reference to the CEO of Ashanti Gold Football Club, Frederick Achiampong, who you saw earlier in your shot there, tabling several counter proposals to the NC. But across social media also, people have been talking about this particular event, and of course on our Facebook page, JoyNews, some of the new proposals, some of the new proposed statutes. So Division 1's 48 delegates have been restored. Juvenile football have also been restored. Congress is now made up of 120 delegates as proposed by the NC. Remember, these are proposals. They are yet to be adopted by Congress. And also proposed is that no Ghana Football Association president shall serve more than 2 terms, same as his vice president. So those are some of the proposals that have been tabled, and these are some of the comments coming in. Bright Della Glover says, good reforms. Aromatic Shaw says, very good statutes. Okay. And Kwame Tete says, good move. Entry Dennis has an interesting comment. These penalty kicks must be considered as being part of the game. Any game that ends in a draw must go through penalties. The winner picks 2 points and the loser picks 1 point. Those will build the capacities of our players when we participate in international competitions. Well, I'm not sure this is part of the proposals that have been tabled. AB, Nana Yao Lucas, Galka is proposing 110 delegates to Congress. Right, so that was contained in a counter proposal made by Frederick Achiampong, CEO of Ashanti Gold Football Club. Senna Kwawu says, all but the 2 terms issues. I think 3 terms should work. Why? Because we are competing with others for positions at CAF. And if your president can't stick around long enough, how does he or she have a chance at CAF and probably FIFA? I think they should relook at the term limit. Mejak, Mechanic, I beg your pardon, Eba. Mechanic Eba says, bring back the youth league so that under 17, under 20 can be made great again in Ghana. Wrapping up here now, but we'll definitely be crossing over to the College of Physicians and Surgeons for more on this Ghana Football Association's Extraordinary Congress.